Ethics, Foundation of Moral Valuation.
Good day, Sir Ian Esmeralda Pelo. In this video, we are the Best in Math 1 reporting the ethics subject from Chapter 1 to Chapter 6. But before that, let me introduce myself first. My name is Ivy Rose Madden Clarison. Chapter 1, The Ethical Dimension of Human Existence. In this chapter, we have an objectives. After reading this chapter, you should be able to identify the ethical aspects of human life and the scope of ethical thinking, define and explain on terms that are relevant to ethical thinking, and evaluate the difficulties that are involved in maintaining certain commonly held notions on ethics. The best way to understand ethics is to get to know your personal values. If it talks about ethics, it also deals with your own personal values. So that's why we need to clarify what are those values, and do you think it is really matters when you talk about understanding ethics? So the first one is we need to understand our things that we value the most and the things of valuation that we have. When we make value judgment based on our senses or feelings, it is not related in the discussion of ethics. If it talks ethics, is more concerned about life and death and its significance of human life. So, if we talk ethics, it's about things significant to human life. For example, ganahan ka ana nga butang, but your friends is dili ganahan. Ana, therefore, it's not related to ethics. Pero, if maingon siya kani nga butang is importante ni siya sa nako, importante sab ni sa imuha, importante natong tanan, therefore, it is related to the discussion of ethics. So, ethics, generally speaking, is about matters such as the good things that we should pursue and the bad things that we should avoid. The right ways in which we could or should act and the wrong ways of acting. It is about what is acceptable and unacceptable in human behavior. It may involve obligations that we are expected to fulfill, prohibitions that we are required to respect, or ideals that we are encouraged to meet. Ethics as a subject for us to study is about determining the grounds for the values with particular and special significance of human life.
Static, from the Greek word aesthesis, which means sense or feeling, and refers to judgment of personal approval or disapproval that what we make about what we see, hear, smell, or taste. Etiquette, concerned with the right or wrong actions, but those which might be considered not quite grave enough to belong to the discussion on ethics. Technical, from the Greek word techne, and refers to proper way or right way of doing things.
So good day everyone, my name is Alda Agustin and I am going to discuss to you about morals and ethics. So morals, it refers to specific beliefs or attitudes that people have or to describe acts that people perform. And also the term moral such as moral reasoning, which suggests a more rational aspects. So it means that moral is about to differentiate what is improper or proper or what is good and right. So here the example of morals. The 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, and etc. So in ethics, the term ethics can be spoken of as the discipline of studying and understanding ideal human behavior and ideal of thinking. And also, and in philosophy, ethics is acknowledged as an intellectual disciplines. So ethics and morals is a branches of philosophy. So philosophy is rooted in the great words that translate to love of wisdom. So philia is the noun often translated into English as some and some form of friendships or love, while sophia translated into wisdom. And also philosophy, in philosophy it has a branches or areas such as metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology.
Good day, I am Marvel A. Apit and I will differentiate the descriptive and normative. A descriptive study of ethics reports how people, particularly groups, make their moral valuations without making any judgment either for or against these valuations. On the other hand, a normative study of ethics is often done in philosophy or moral theology, engages the question what could or should be considered as the right way of acting. In other words, a normative discussion describes what we ought to maintain as our standards or basis for moral valuation. I will give two sentences for the example. First, I saw a group of teenagers dancing in the plaza. Second, they aren't suited for dancing since they don't know how to execute. So the first sentence there is the descriptive and the second sentence is the normative. And that's the difference between descriptive and normative.
Good day everyone, I am Ronaldin P. Balsan from Basic Math 1. So now we are going to continue our discussion about the issue, decision, judgment, and dilemma. First, we talk about the moral issue. Moral issue class is a situation that calls for moral valuation. Example in moral issue class is to imagine a situation wherein a person cannot afford a certain item, but then the possibility present itself for her to steal it. This is a matter of ethics, and so far it is both the question of respect for one's or someone's. Then the second one would be the moral decision. Moral decision class when one is placed in a situation and confronted by the choices of what act to perform. For example, in moral decision class is I choose not to take. Sometimes I did not pay for. Then the third one is moral judgment. Moral judgment class when a person is an observer making assessment of the action or behavior of someone. For example, in moral judgment class is you have a friend of mine chooses to steal from a store and I make an assessment that it is wrong. Then the fourth one is moral dilemma. Moral dilemma class when one is torn between choosing one of two goods or choosing between the lesser of two evils. For example of the moral dilemma class that we had encountered is when the pandemic struck. I was stuck between if I will pursue college or I will pursue it after a year if the pandemic will be okay. Because to be honest, my family is not financially stable at that time. So as an older brother to my sister, I had to choose if it's okay if I will pursue college or not. So I guess that's it, and thank you and God bless you all.
Sources of authority. Several common ways of thinking about ethics are based on the idea that standards of valuation are imposed by a higher authority that commands our obedience. One idea is the authority of law. Law is supposed to be one's guide to one's behavior. For an example scenario, the story of a toddler who had been run over by a couple of vehicles. While there were many passers-by who witnessed what happened, no one did anything to help. Then the child later died in the hospital. The law does not oblige passers-by to help, so none of them broke any law. However, some people said that those passers-by were culpable because of ignoring the child. In short, not all laws are ethical and not all ethical decisions are legal.
Hi everyone, I'm going to discuss about religion. Religion, the divinity called God, Allah, or Supreme Being commands, and one is obligated to obey his or her creator, divine commandery. So I'm going to give some example of religion. First, Hinduism, the dominant religion of India that emphasizes Dharma with its resulting ritual and social observance and often mystical contemplation and ascetic practices. And also, Islam, the religion of Muslims, a monotheistic faith regarded as revealed through Muhammad as the prophet of Allah.
Good day everyone, so for today's video I'm going to tackle all about culture, which is belong to moral theories, the law, religion, and culture. The law teach us how to avoid bad things and religion is teach us what are the good things to do. So let us move to topic all about culture. So culture is surpasses the law and the religion. Culture are the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of particular nation, people, or other social group. So our exposure to different societies and their culture make us aware that there are ways of thinking and valuing that are different from our own. That there is in fact a diversity of how different people believe, and it is proper to act, no? So there have difference between Japanese art and Indian art, and we have also difference between religion, the Buddhism and Christianity. What is ethically acceptable or unacceptable is relative to, or that is to say, dependent to one's culture. That is called cultural relativism. So cultural relativism is right or wrong varies from society's culture to society's or tradition. Food choices are a good example because people have become more tolerant of food from cultures that are not their own. In the past, people were more likely to find some types of food unacceptable, but now they are more likely to not judge others based on their food choices. And that is cultural relativism. So relativism varies from person to person. What is true to you may not true to me. What is true to me may not true to you, and that is relativism. And that would be all. Thank you.
Lesson for today is all about physiological egoism. Physiological egoism suggests that all behavior are motivated by self-interest. Ego or self has its desire and interest, and all our actions are geared toward satisfying those interests. Suggests that every action or behavior or decision of every action has most be motivated by self-interest.
Before we proceed to the next topic, the ethical egoism, may I have introduced myself first. A pleasant day, everyone. I am Crystalie Cabaño. Ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is a normative theory, which means that it is a theory that focuses on how people should or ought to behave. This theory assumes that everyone acts in their own self-interest. Ethical egoism is still a normative theory and should not be confused with psychological egoism. Psychological egoism describes how people actually behave, whereas normative theory describes how people should behave. According to ethical egoism, it is acceptable to make a decision or take an action to benefit oneself. Just for an example, a person who invites a friend to a movie that he or she wants to see because he or she does not want to go alone and is thinking of her own self-interest first. We may act in a way that is beneficial to others, but we should do that only if it ultimately benefits us. And that's what ethical egoism is.